Greetings, everyone. Welcome to yet another Brony Debates Live. I hope you're all doing well out there. We've got a heck of a topic tonight, suggested to us by Princess Heather Blossom, who's joining us tonight. How are you doing tonight, Heather?
Chill.
Very good.
Pretty chill.
What made you want to discuss this topic? We're talking about, is fandom bias warranted? So break this down for us.
I really came up with this topic because of you. You keep showing fandom bias. It's always like, furries suck. Sonic fans are cringe. Steven Universe fans are toxic.
Am I
and
wrong,
I'm like,
though?
Yeah, it's like not in all cases. That's what I'm saying. Is that like, is this whole fandom-wide bias warranted? Like, you can't just judge an entire group over the actions of a few, you know?
Hashtag not all, stream over.
Alrighty then, so we'll get that figured out. To join us for this, we've got a few people who know a thing or two. We'll go from left to right on the thumbnail there. We got Calbeck joining us again. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Aloha, I'm doing fine. I just got done cooking some biscuits because the guy who delivered them exploded.
Really?
It's Phoenix at the tail end of summer. This happens.
Oh, you know something that makes sense.
When your food arrives from the fridge, pre-cooked.
I'd left some cookie dough out in my what do you call it? The dashboard of my car, and when I came back, there were cookies.
Yeah, not surprised.
That's beautiful.
So, we've got DJ joining us tonight. How are you doing tonight, DJ?
Hello, it's been a hot minute.
It has been. Where you been?
Usually doing something else when you're streaming and only end up making it to Heather's.
Gosh darn it. You know,
hey, I pay you more.
That's true, I guess, but you know nothing is more important than Brony debates. How are we going to solve the problems of the fandom if you're not here?
By ignoring your suggestions that you're usually about violence or replacing every writer and actor with yourself?
That's, first of all, we all know that would just improve everything, okay?
It always gets hung up on the cloning issue. That's always the problem.
It's always cloning with him.
We got Editz Khun joining us for the first time on a debate. How are you doing tonight, Editz?
Oh, I got a little bit of a headache, so this will be fun. Also, I like how in the picture I'm center right politically. What the heck? No.
Don't start. He put me on the left.
Yeah. I put myself on the far right.
Whoa, here. No, but it's
the
nice
far left. Oh my god, we're like Stark Paws.
Oh my god, don't get me started. But yeah,
let Californians congregate.
Yeah, I mean half.
Oh my god, Surfer Nation unite!
Oh my god, bro!
Yeah.
I mean, funny enough, half of us are Californian here. But yeah, I'm glad to be on. Let's see what heated debate we'll get into here.
Yeah, now you're new to my show, but you've been on. If anybody here watches Heather's shows, you've been on there and hanging out with us for quite a few years. You a good friend of ours. But just for my audience, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Editz Khun, and I edit. That's basically my whole thing, my whole gig. That's what I do.
You got a YouTube channel, don't you?
Yes, I do. It is Jer Edits. Huh?
I said you do, and I completely forgot to link it in the description. Hang on a second.
But yeah, it is JEREDITC, Jer Edits. Lately, it's just been road rage videos, but I want to do more than that. I'm gonna be making. I do want to make more travel videos. I think those are fun.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
goodness gracious! I tried to find your YouTube channel. I clicked on the wrong one.
Oh, I don't know what it is, but I get like. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on here, and we got Canto joining us again tonight. How are you doing tonight, Canto?
I'm doing pretty good. Ready to tell fandoms about themselves because I've interacted with a lot of weird ones in my lifetime.
Most fandoms are pretty gosh darn weird. Like as good as elite in terms of fandom that bronies are, we can be pretty dang weird too. Anyway, looks like we got a pretty good debate coming up here tonight. We're going to get into it about 5 minutes in, but first we got to thank the supporters and patrons of the channel. So, thank you all for supporting the channel, especially the $10 and up tier, some of which are joining us tonight, such as Princess Heather Blossom and Canto Acrylic VA. There's also Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer. Oh, there's Calbeck as well, and DJ. Wow, half of my $10 and up tier is on this call tonight. There's Emerald Spencer, Senko, Rein-Kun, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Mr. Sonic 31, Alicia Lynette, Zeta Z, Sniper Nighter, Star Chaser, Venture Core, Willie Eisen, 7 equals 1 Heart, and Dark Malcontent, executive producer of Titan Art Studios. Check out all their links in the description, and Editz, when you get your link to your YouTube, drop that in the chat for me so they can know what's up. And
Okay.
and they can go check you out too. If you guys would like to get on the show, we'd love to have you. Patreon or any of the other support links in the description for as little as $1 a month. Or if you want to get a comment read out live, there is a tip jar on the bottom left there. And yeah, like I said, I say links in the description so many times. I got to figure out a way to condense this. Now then, here's the question that I'm going to ask tonight is how... In any fandom that we talk about, my question is always going to be, what is the ratio of bad apples? And does that ratio affect how we should view the fandom? So let me just, get this out of the way. With all people, I mean, and I was trash talking a little bit before stream, but, with in just about all types of people, inside and outside of fandom, regardless of any characteristics, I do my best to give people the benefit of the doubt until they give me a reason to mistrust them. However, after a certain point of seeing the same sorts of behaviors over and over again out of people from whatever demographics, I start saying, okay, this might be indicative of the culture as a whole. Now, when you go forth in life, you still got to know that there are exceptions and things like that. So you treat everybody individually, but then when someone does something stereotypical of their fandom, I'm not surprised. So Heather, give us your thoughts on this issue.
I just think it's completely bogus. Like, just making a judgment call on someone based off of the fandom is ridiculous. Other than assuming, like, hey, you're part of the fandom, you must like that show. I think it's ridiculous because with my own experience, of course, I've found people that have been just like, it's an entire spectrum of different people in every fandom. There's always going to be the creeps. There's always going to be the cool people. There's always the artistic people. But yeah, like, I guess I see, like, most fandoms are similar in nature. You get the same types in every fandom because that's just how it works. Personally, I just hate that, like, just people come with the attitude of, like, never talk to a furry because they're all creeps. When some of the best people at conventions I've met are always the fursuiters. I love the fursuiters. They're great. Their costumes are always the best and look really cool, and they're usually really freaking friendly. They come out of their shells when they're wearing that stuff. And I just don't like being a judgmental person. Like, just judge someone based on their own merits, like the attitude that you just talked about. Like, you meet someone and you just don't make any, like, judgment calls like that.
Indeed. Calbeck, what do you think about the question here?
Same exact thing, and I say that from experience going back to I got into various fandoms during the early 80s, and it was actually with gaming conventions, because I started off as a tabletop gamer, and I don't mean D&D, I mean stuff like war games, and getting into things like Starfleet Battles, which had just this massive rule book. And I began noticing things about the various communities I was getting into, not just with gaming, but later on I would run in, and join the furries, and I would, I actually saw the proto MLP fandom before G4 came along, and I saw there were certain patterns that would emerge in that you would have the average person who would enjoy it, somebody who would feel nervous about admitting that they enjoyed it, and then somebody who was essentially the super fan who believed that the world needed to know what it was that they were into. And when it comes to furries, this is a particularly interesting thing because unlike just about any other fandom, and I think this really needs to be got out early here, furries are disconnected from any central property. There is no, it's not Star Trek fandom, it's not Battlestar Galactica fandom, it's not My Little Pony fandom, it's furries as a concept. So there is no central gate. There is no central thing saying this is and this is not furry. And it all started out with comic books back in the 80s. So what you got was a mishmash of people coming in, and then once it became popular, you had people start grafting themselves into it with stuff that they brought with them. So what furry fandom has become known for since is largely as the result of people who didn't give a damn about the comics, they didn't give a damn about the artwork, they were there for a hookup culture that began developing in the 90s. So I have seen across the board what happens, and I really do agree with Heather. You have to look at the individual, but I also think you can look at the fandom in terms of analysis and analyzing how a fandom itself works, and you can draw things from which way the fandom will tend to push people. And you might make generalities from that, but you still can't assume what an individual is going to do.
Alrighty then. DJ, what do you think?
I think stereotypes exist for a reason. I believe a lot of fandoms have earned their generalizations. But on an individual level, everyone's their own person. And so I come from the idea that a stereotype or a generalization will give you a starting point, not always the best starting point, but sometimes you gotta let people surprise you as well.
Alrighty then. Editz, what do you think?
Alright, so let me try to think this through. Basically, My Little Pony has kind of been the main fandom I've stayed around, especially when I was in high school. Now, mind you, at that time, I would like to say I was technically a stereotype of what people would think. And at the time when I was in high school, being a brony was kind of like the derogatory, oh, you're a brony kind of ordeal, right? That, like, it's a whole new thing. So I guess on my view of it, it's what people think from outside that generally gets warranted. But that's just my hunch at the moment. That's what I could say.
And Canto, tell us what you think.
I do agree that it does depend on the person, but when you look at a fan base as a whole, and you look at like you look at the basic generalizations of everyone, that exists because enough people acted in a certain way, or enough people publicly acted in a certain way to form a stereotype around the people who enjoy that medium. It's not this now. Of course, it's not gonna of course, it's not gonna be the same for every person you come across in that fan base. But when it's enough of them, you can at least look at common traits between each of them and common character traits to the extremes, and make your judgment or your perspective based off of that. So the stereotypes exist, but of course it doesn't vary from person to person. It doesn't vary for individuals.
Alrighty then. So here's my next question: is how much does ratio play into how a fandom should be perceived? And here's where I'm going to bring in an example, and my example is going to be the Steven Universe fandom, which is not the most toxic fandom I've ever seen, but that was really, at least not ever, but when it was really starting to gain steam, like in 2014, 15, 16, things like that, it was just one thing after the next of fandom drama. And while the bronies were making some of their best art and best music and best animations, and people were being, lifted up out of depression and lifted up out of poverty, the Steven Universe fandom from episode 1 was tearing itself apart because they didn't have enough of the boxes checked, or characters weren't portrayed in exactly the way that they wanted to, even from episode 1, before the whole alphabet spectrum got brought into it. The shipping wars were something to behold, and then of course there's the infamous rose quartz got drawn skinny and someone tried to kill themselves over the amount of bullying. That type of thing did not happen on that scale in the Brony fandom, and still doesn't, but it was a regular occurrence in the Steven Universe fandom. And for what I observed of it from the outside, I can say that with confidence. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it goes to, there's a couple of things here. First of all, you're absolutely right. Most people they can only go off the data they have. If their first interaction with the fandom is watching a Steven Universe fan tear into somebody else because a character wasn't drawn fat enough, the average person is just going to go like, what? And then if they get torn into because they said that sounds stupid, then their first interaction is hostility over something dumb that doesn't seem to have anything to do with the show, really. So that person then has that viewpoint. If you have enough people who are being obnoxious like that, then the general public starts getting the general stereotype, as has been pointed out, gets fed to them. This creates a secondary problem, because people who never heard of the fandom but hear about the stereotype and go, that's me, I want to do that. Then they jump into the fandom and reinforce the problem.
Interesting. Would anybody like to add or take away from what Calbeck is saying?
I would say that's exactly what it's like for a lot of fandoms, because like the fandom I was talking about the most, about me having like, I feel like a prejudice or is warranted, is towards the My Hero fandom. And let me just say this now, I do enjoy My Hero as a story. I do enjoy the anime. I do enjoy the manga, but like a regular, literally like this was a documented thing that happened like in the past year or so. Like at some point, like a bunch of like fans were like sending death threats to the creator because he didn't make a certain ship canon. And this was like a thing that went on for like weeks. And then maybe like a month after, or maybe either a month after or a month before, like some character, like a character during it, like to avoid spoilers for anyone who's trying to keep up with My Hero, that's my I don't know what you're doing here, but hey, one of the characters like looked like they were about to die, and now these are all things that like I have heard just by like word of mouth and like through social media, so this may not all be exactly true, but the death threats happened, and apparently like around 13 people killed themselves over the potential that this character could die. And
really? Literally? Hold up.
Do we have confirmation on that?
Yeah, and you're saying, I want to make sure I heard him correctly. People actually successfully killed themselves, you're saying?
That is what a lot of like the news I was hearing around the fandom at the time was saying. And so it was like, I'm sitting here I don't interact with the fandom like at all. Like I'll look at like some fan works, like fan like art every now and then, and I'll read the manga, but I do not interact with any fans. So I'm hearing all this from the outside, and I'm also seeing like the cringe videos of these people and whatever they do in their off time. And of course, when you look at all that over the span of a couple of months, and nothing positive about them is coming up. So of course you're gonna look at it and be like, oh yeah, no, everyone in this fandom has got to be out of their mind. It's like, I've seen too many videos or like just things, opinions in general, just kind of like, yeah, like if you enjoy My Hero, you can enjoy it, but you're not gonna like the fans. and it's just like,
Right, so Canto,
I
that
can't say.
begs the question, right? Because I mean, a lot of shows live and die on their fandom, and if people aren't talking about your show, then they're just gonna, and they're not interacting with it, then they're gonna forget about it. They're not gonna watch it. Your show's not gonna go on, and then what was the point in the first place? So you have to have fandom, but I'm
Well,
gonna say it
except
again.
for the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say it again. Like, what was the ratio? Because yes, we get now My Hero Academia compared to Brony's is huge, right? So is this? Have you ever met a My Hero Academia fan that didn't exhibit all of these stereotypes or disavowed these aspects of the fandom, or liked or got something good out of being a part of the fandom in general?
Honestly, no. I haven't met a person like in real life who has enjoyed like who has interacted with the fandom and enjoyed like every aspect, enjoyed like something positive from it. At least not from a I've met this person in real life perspective or even over the internet. I've seen good fan art. I've seen good social media things about it, like people doing fan colorings of like manga like that they bought. Then that's their money, that's their pencils, they do that, and like people respond well to those. But I haven't seen that as much as I've seen the extremes that I've mentioned before. So it's just kind of like definitely you're looking at maybe a good 30-70 or even like 80-20 is with the good and the bad.
Interesting. I see. Now, I'm gonna real quick. I'm just gonna address something Mega Buster Shepherd said in the chat. He says you never hear about Naruto fans going off the deep end. Now, here's the thing about Naruto fans is that they get really, really determined and really, really focused on something, but they're always really bad at what they do. That is something I've noticed about Naruto fans they'll just spout off with all of the confidence in the world and just be wrong. And then you correct them and they're like, and then like I saw this happen a lot in the early 2000s when Naruto was like airing in the United States and getting a huge fan base. And you'd be having a completely unrelated conversation. Somebody would just say like the most wrong thing you've ever heard in your whole life. You would correct them on it. And then they would say something like, yeah, but like Naruto, I need to just believe in myself and I'll make it true with my, with everything I've got or something. Like they would pull up the show and I'm like, oh, you watch Naruto. And after like the 10th time that happened, I started noticing a pattern. And then people would be having these conversations with me and they'd say something just freaking wrong. And I would go, you watch Naruto, don't you? And be right about 60% of the time.
That is the definition of it. He confused, but he got the spirit though. Though,
Yeah.
can I interject with like, you're kind of illustrating what I think the problem is here, because you're just saying about things you've heard other people talk about. I'm not saying anything you've said maybe is not true. Probably not all of it. I don't know if that many people would kill themselves over a character. But but it goes down to that basically that trend of the loud minority being heard the most, because you know how many fans of the series are just like you, like they're just quiet observers, they're not active content creators, and then there's the content creators that just aren't partaking in any of that. It's the people generating the loudest discourse that you're talking about, because you're actually like parodying a very popular talking point that I've heard a few times. Brony, we watched this video on TikTok where somebody just interviewed a whole bunch of people at a convention. It's like, what's the worst fandom to be a part of? And without hesitating, like half the people said the My Hero fandom, and it was for those reasons. But I just feel like so many people take the loudest minority that won't shut up about the things they do, and just freaking compartmentalize that, be like, oh, they must all be like this because these are the ones I hear about the most. No, those are just the ones you hear about the most. The majority of the fandom are just regular people who enjoy a thing.
You know, I'm definitely not disagreeing with that, but like just from an outsider perspective, like that just like generally like if there was a reason for Prejudice, it would be because of that.
Okay,
No,
so
yeah, I totally see what you're saying.
I know how to fix this, right? But it would take some sociological science, right? So the next time everybody here, I'm giving you guys homework, I'm giving everybody in the chat homework. The next time you guys go to an anime convention, I need you to interview every My Hero Academia cosplayer you see. You're gonna be working the whole weekend.
Oh, that's gonna be easy. I never go to anime conventions.
Well, now you're going to anime conventions. I'm sure there's one. I'm sure there's one coming up in your area. You're going.
So
but
we
anyway,
have to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well. Here's the thing. We're gonna ask questions like, how much do you participate in the fandom online? Are you a casual viewer? What do you think about these stereotypes? What do you right and get a general sense of what people who are not terminally online saying about their show and their fandom and how they interact with it, and we will find that silent majority if it exists, or we will prove the stereotypes right because they'll spurg out.
I am going to wear a lab coat, a unicorn head mask, and carry a clipboard.
Yeah, sure. Go. You do that, Calbeck. What are you saying, Heather?
Yeah.
You have to keep in mind that My Hero Academia is one of the most popular anime series that there is. The fandom is huge. So incredibly huge. It eclipses Bronies. The only thing that probably is bigger because it's general anime fans, like every anime fan knows My Hero and has at least watched it. The only thing that could probably eclipse that thing is furries.
So if we were to interview 1,000 anime fans at a given convention, it probably would still be a bad sample.
It probably would be. It's a lot of mixes when it comes to anime conventions, and I mean, knowing the biggest one in LA, it's you can't really. I don't know.
I like that we're actually I'm sorry. I like that we're actually discussing the realities of polling.
Well, yeah, that's what it comes down to, because it's a related topic, because it is just so impossible, because it is such a large, diverse group of people. And, you know, these people, they aren't just in one fandom. They contrast and go into different fandoms. Like, you know how many fandoms I'm technically in? And that's just if you're counting like something I've done discourse about. What about the stuff that you just enjoy and you're a casual enjoyer of and you're not really super involved in the fandom? You're kind of part of the fandom because you're enjoying the same contents. There's just so many levels of fandom, and the fandoms are just so huge. I think that's why I think just generalizing everyone under an umbrella is completely ridiculous. Like, you can't just go around thinking like, oh, all Steven Universe fans are toxic, because like, you know how huge a fandom is? You know how many just minor levels of fandom are just going around minding their own business because they're just regular ass people who enjoy a thing? It's why Prejudice, the fandom Prejudice, is just such a ridiculous concept to me, because how can you do that? It makes absolutely no sense.
I think... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I could say, though, just trying to get to the My Hero Academia fandom website, there's too much for me to kind of go through. So my stereotype of it is, it's a mess. That's what I can say. I click on the fandom page, and it's like, okay, there's a lot of ads popping up. I'm scrolling around. Where do I go? I can see the characters, but other than that, I don't know. I like to go across your daily. It's easy to understand.
I'd have to say that the real problem when you get down to it is that you get people who feel empowered by fandoms. And they will get into a position where they'll abuse it, they'll abuse other people, and they may even start fights about things that they don't really care about because they know other people care about it, and it gives them leverage socially. I think that is the core problem in a lot of cases.
Yeah, there definitely is a problem with fandoms and toxic behavior. We could go into debate of like, is fandom toxic? And the answer is, and I hate this answer, is yes and no, because it is both. Like, you know, you talk about
that's the answer on almost every debate that I've been doing in the last several years. Go ahead and finish your point, Heather.
not to diminish the how serious we should take these things, but you know how unsurprised I was to hear that the My Hero Academia fandom sent death threats to a creator, because by God, every fandom has sent death threats to creators for some stupid bullshit. Voltron fandom did it. The My Little Pony fandom did it. My Hero did it now. Who would have thought? Whenever there are shippers, there will be death threats. You just gotta take it in stride. When you're
But
a
here's the
creator,
thing,
someone's
Heather.
gonna threaten to kill you.
Here's the thing, Heather. The amount, like, literally less than 10 death threats or threats of any kind to any of the staff on Friendship is Magic, right? Out of the, I'm gonna say conservatively 2 million bronies that are out there, right? And then we get, so 2 million bronies, less than 10, okay? 10 million or more My Hero Academia fans, thousands of death threats. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about here.
You're taking advantage of the fact that I don't like to do math.
That ratio is boned, okay?
Okay.
I failed math. I failed math, so I can see the point that one kind of outweighs the other. The whole fact that there's 1,000 of them.
Look, a larger fandom, larger chances there's going to be some wackos that are going to tell you should die because their ship isn't canon. And I will say, it feels like there was just so much ship teasing in My Hero. I'm not justifying that shit. I'm just saying you were kind of baiting them.
I think that's just anime. That's just fandoms in general. They love to ship a lot.
They love to threaten to kill you.
I've gotten death threats from the BattleTech community, and one of these on a public server, public forum, some guy drew my OC being dismembered by a mech blowing up his tank. I mean, it was graphic. I looked at it and went, "Damn, that's good line work. Can you send me a copy?"
He's got it framed on his wall behind him right now.
It would be nice. Unfortunately,
you just
I
gotta
don't. It was
assume
really
some
good.
of them want you dead. I'm
Yeah,
waiting for my first death threat.
Oh god.
You know that's when you've arrived.
Well, you're in the Hell of a Boss fandom. It's gonna happen eventually.
Oh,
That's
Lord.
true. That's true.
Oh wait, you're in Hell of a Boss fandom? Tell us, what do you feel about spiders who are sexy?
Okay, so I have a keychain of a sexy spider on my desk right now. He is beautiful. He is bae.
There's
We all
no
know
such
the
thing
only
as a
bae on
sexy
that show is
spider,
one with the
Heather. It's
rainbow.
just I forgot.
It's hell of a boss, man. It's hell
I'll
of a
never
boss.
win.
Has been hotel technically, but yeah, I like that fandom, and I know people in that fandom are either gonna go up to me and be like, "You die and go to hell," and I'm like, "That's kind of the point."
Yeah.
Somebody's like, "Oh, you like Angel? You're so cringe. Oh, I hate you."
Nah, I've been called a few things at this point, not for the Has Been Hotel things, but because I like cosplay. All the stuff you can think of. You just gotta expect it from any part of fandom. You're gonna get called, what have I been called? A man, fat, ugly, fatherless. That was an interesting one. I've never been called that before.
That's me.
You're a basement neckbeard living in your family's trailer, and you hate women
Oh
Because-
man, I didn't know it got this deep.
because you're a gamer.
Game.
Gamer, yeah.
Okay.
So
You got that one got recycled a lot though. It's like, you have no dad, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that? What does that even imply?
Wait. You're fatherless? Does that mean like you had the immaculate conception of the whole thing? We should be worshiping you?
I am
It's
the
like-
next coming.
This explains why she's an alicorn.
Heather, could you not?
No.
Could you not?
Like-
Could you please not blaspheme on my show?
And then
Like-
make it a joke.
Admittedly, that was my blasphemy. I'm gonna own that.
All right.
Because like I know, like fatherless is like a term that like people my age use. So like fatherless is to assume that like you have daddy issues, and they'll say that to like they'll say that when they see a female or a female presenting person doing anything. To be honest, you do anything, and you're just like fatherless. He's like,
You know, I'm
"Oh."
gonna go like,
Biggest
you're right,
insult.
fatherless and motherless. Nothingness came from the ether.
It's basically you got the worst insult in the world. No dad.
Fatherless. It's weird seeing the evolution over time, right? Because these days it's fatherless behavior, but
Yeah.
10 or 15 to 20 years ago, it was get back in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, you know, misogyny evolving.
Mhm.
My dad's coming back with the cigarettes any day now. You guys.
Yeah,
thought
that
he
is
wanted to get
true.
milk.
This is at least a gender neutral insult. I could call any of you fatherless.
I'm
Yeah,
still
Well,
waiting
no,
on the
if
milk.
anything though, the whole fatherless behavior insult is more akin to our point about stereotypes, because you see these patterns of people and the way that they behave, and then you realize things about their personal life and patterns start to emerge.
Mm.
Mm.
That's where the whole
I
fatherless
love-
behavior comes from, right? Like how many times and I'll be scrolling, you know, funny screenshots of Twitter conversations, and 30 times a day I'll see, you know, somebody like say an OnlyFans model getting into some stupid debate and with somebody else, and they'll see the OnlyFans link in the description and go, "Why don't you tell me about your relationship with your father?" And she'll go, "Oh, I don't have a relationship with my father." Well, at a certain point, you start
You can
noticing the
have a
pattern.
relation. Look, you can have
It
a relationship
correlates.
with these tits. At least she's making bag.
Hey man.
We can correlate this back to fandoms, you know.
Can I
and the
just say
bias.
in the chat, I want to address one thing. Angel of Speed quoted some of my favorite memes. He goes, "Objection lack of father, objection lack of bitches."
What does that mean?
It's a thing.
I'll tell you
Oh,
later
I'll
after the
show
show.
you that if you haven't seen it, it's really funny.
Eldritch Dragoon says Heather is maidenless.
Yeah. There's
Dare
another
you?
one.
I've got a maiden. He's over there. It's more maidens than you have, ho.
Ooh. You gonna take that?
I'm not maidenless. I have all their albums.
So, Calbeck, before the stream, you were kind of telling me about the furry fandom, right? And
Yeah.
that is known that is known for its perversion. And
Yeah, sadly so.
yeah, and you were talking about your experiences with trying to create a movement within the fandom to either tone it down or at least get the kink out of the public eye, so that it can be more palatable to newcomers, or maybe safer for children, and you got some pushback on that. So do you want to tell us that story and elaborate on that?
Oh well, that's a little bit of a mischaracterization, but you're not far off.
All right.
What
Well,
was
yeah.
going?
Sorry,
Okay,
I
let me
was skimming
let
the
me. Yeah,
conversation. So
that's fine.
correct
That's
me.
fine. I said before, and I know I've said on this show before, furry fandom started out as basically an outgrowth of black and white independent comics. And you didn't have smut in independent comics because they wouldn't sell unless you were specifically catering to that what was then a very niche market. So, you know, TMNT blew up and a lot of people started doing knockoffs, and then people started doing original anthropomorphic stuff. There always had been other stuff, but this kind of created this critical mass that the fandom then began forming around. And it was originally about comic books. And then people like, hey, I can draw my own art. Nothing's stopping me from drawing my own character. And there you go. And people started swapping sketchbooks back and forth. And this artistic concept of just a meta genre that could fit into any genre. You could have a campy Western. You could have hard sci-fi. You could have a horror comic or whatever. Everybody was doing their own comics, their own stories, their own artwork, and very little of it was pornographic. And then you had people coming in going like, you know what? I find this cat very sexy, and everybody else should too. And if you don't think this cat is sexy, you aren't really a furry, because furry is all about getting in touch with your personal sexuality on the animal side. And I've actually attended convention panels, not furry convention panels, panels run by people running furry conventions where they're trying to get people into the fandom, coming in and talking to the audience and saying being a furry is about getting in touch with your intersexuality. Yeah. And that was in the 90s. So what happened was that people came in, started tacking on their own personal sexual preferences, and began making that what the fandom was about. And they put the money in to run their own conventions, so you had people entering the fandom thinking that's what it was all about. We had people coming to conventions who actually didn't know what furries were. All they had heard was that the convention itself was about sex. So they were walking up and down the like the main center of the hotel in bondage gear on leashes. So it's like, well, what's that got to do with furry fandom? What's a furry? So we were already having that problem in the 90s, and this exacerbated, as I was saying before, as more people started noticing those folks and saying, oh, that's what the fandom is about. And that attracted more people of like mindset because that's what entered the public eye. Well, the first press that we attracted generally was from fringe outfits, the ones that'll say, hey, here's something new and weird. And what would they focus on? The guys walking around in bondage. The guys saying, hey, I'm here to talk about how much I like to have sex with my Great Dane, and I'm looking for other people of like mind. And meanwhile, down in the art show, there are people with like spaceship battles going on and anthropomorphic characters in spacesuits, fighting each other with lasers. It's like, this has nothing to do with sex. That is a thing that exists here, but it's not the only thing. And the press is going like, that's nice. We're going to talk about the porn now.
Because that gets more views.
Because it gets more views. And it just compounded the problem over and over. So a lot of us furries got tired of this and started deciding, well, if what gets attention is the conventions and art shows and stuff, we better run some of our own. And these conventions were set up with the idea that if you're going to have anything sexual, it needs to be in your own bedroom. It needs to be, it's your own private thing. It's not a public thing. Don't be macking on your date in the hallway or anything like that. And if you're going to sell, we didn't even necessarily have bans on porn being sold in the dealer's room, but it had to be like you would find in a 7-Eleven. It's got to have a black cover or be behind something you can let people know, but you can't shove it in their face. NC-17 and X-rated artwork had its own art show, and you had to be carded going in. So we started gatekeeping ourselves. This pissed off the people who had come in insisting that their sex life is what it was all about. And a war began.
I'm guessing this kind of leads me to what unwarrants that bias. I think that's a good thing that kind of leads me to question, like, why, like, what's unwarranted when it comes to the biases that are allowed and what's not allowed in a fandom in the public sense. That's my question.
Calbeck, tell me about. I have something I want to say, but I want you to confirm something for me first. So tell me about that war.
What happened was that, for example, I set up a convention. Okay, I actually have to back this up. Every time I think, okay, I can start here. No, I need to back up a little bit. There was a particular central furry fandom conference that was called Conference. And around the 8th iteration, a lot of people were publicly complaining about behavior that was going on there for like the preceding several years. And this would constantly get pushed back on by the convention organizers who said, there's no problem. You're making things up. You're homophobic began to become the standard response, including against people who were gay. If a gay person popped up and said, this is bad behavior, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, well, you're homophobic. You must hate the gay community. You're self-hating. The whole thing. Everything that I've seen in social media these days, furries did it in the 90s. And this went back and forth.
Well, those are all the same people, if I could interrupt you. So, but go ahead.
A lot of them are, yeah, actually. So at Conference 8, this was Knott's Berry Farm, by the way. Knott's Berry Farm, the family theme park.
Yeah, I remember that.
I love that place.
Yeah, it was a great place.
Yeah, it was great until the guy came out dancing in the Dixie Cup and nothing else because he'd been told it was a coming out convention in the main lobby of the hotel.
Ew.
And then it's like, what are these liquids on the elevator door? Oh, don't pay attention to that. No, this is a problem. So at the chicken dinner festival ending the convention, a bunch of us were talking over our various tables. This needs to change. And I said, screw it. I will set up ZonyCon. I will put my own money on the line and do for Arizona a regional convention for furries. We may not ever get very big, but we'll give it our best shot. And we ran for a couple of years, and the people who attended it enjoyed it, but we never got more than about 100 attendees, in part because of boycotts out of California where this kind of misbehavior was going on and becoming normalized. They started screaming that we're Nazis, that we hate gays, that we are trying to get gays arrested. What had actually happened was that I told somebody who was threatening to come out in full bondage gear, I said, don't do that, because the sheriff's department will arrest you. It's like, oh, you're going to call the cops on me. It's like, no, if you do that in public, they'll do it on their own. This is Arizona. This is not California. Well, in California, I have the right to do. It's like, okay, but if you come here, this is what's going to happen. I don't want you going to jail. I don't want the convention having to deal with it. So don't come here if you're going to pull that. And of course, this turned into, oh, he's anti-gay. He's trying to bar gay people from attending. He's anti-pride, and this definitely retarded in the original sense of the term, the attendance.
Mm.
And we gave it a second outing, and we had similar results, and it wasn't going anywhere. And the third time I tried putting something together, is like, I could see it tracking the same way. We were taking a bloodbath financially every year that we put it on, and I soaked all that. Basically, I was the money bag, such as it was. So it's like, I can't afford this anymore. So ZonyCon died. And a number of other attempts also had the same problem, where you had smear campaigns going on by people who knew how to drive fear and anger in a fandom for socio-political purposes. And they would just make stuff up. It didn't matter.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were done.
So I think the only way you can see a reversal in fandoms that have this kind of toxicity, it builds up at the gatekeeping level. And the people who are allowing things to go on in the public eye that are just very nasty. I mean, some of the stuff this wouldn't address, like the online fight about somebody drawing somebody's character fat. That doesn't happen at a convention or an art show. But some of the public stuff that goes on, that gets filmed and that gets spread around and news outlets cover it, that is very much in a fandom's control. And a fandom needs to step up and say, we want more people in our fandom, and we want to have a broader range of people in here who aren't just here for a single thing. Because if you don't diversify, you die. If you have one thing that you focus on, you stagnate, and eventually you will die. So if you want the fandom to be healthy, you have to have more. You have to be more than the one-trick pony. Excuse me.
Right. So you did confirm what my suspicions were, right? And this is what I'm going to say to situations like that, is the fact that you trying to do what you were doing, getting that much pushback, that it was just overwhelming, right? Shows to me that the fandom has
You're wrong in that it was not overwhelming. The people who were doing it were in key positions already in the fandom. This was a relative. I would say this was maybe 20 people in total achieving this effect.
Really, but then there's not thousands of people. But then those 20 people are affecting thousands of people that are then affecting your thing. So that means that would tell me that a great majority of people are agreeing with the 20 people that are in the right position to. Okay, so
it means that thousands of people are being suckered into believing a load of lies by people that they look at and say, but I want to be supportive of the gay community. This guy is in charge of the gay community in this fandom. Why would he lie? Well, because he wants to stamp out what he himself has convinced himself is a, let's see here, if I got the quote correct, a right-wing, reactionary, neo-Nazi Christian fundamentalist event. Where it's like we had artwork of Irma Felna like shooting a laser sword and Winnie Woodpecker fighting a Jedi. Yeah, really hardcore, neo-Nazi stuff there.
Alrighty then. So that's more of a. You're saying that's not a community thing. That's not something that I can apply my ratio argument to. It is just propaganda by a couple of people.
Essentially, yeah. What the rule that I've noticed is not ratio. It is a particular song. Tell me how to lie. You're getting closer every time. We've all heard that song. There was a Rainbow Dash video that did a great number with it. Speeding it up and making it squeaky. I forget what the actual name of it is. But the whole thing is about lying to the public to abuse trust and get people to hate and follow and to farm the likes, farm the adulation that you get. It's all about being popular and destroying the other people just so you can be more popular. That is the driving thing that I see behind most of these toxic parts of various fandoms.
Interesting. So, I've got to sit and ponder on that for a while. So I'm going to open up the floor. Does anybody else want to add or take away from what Calbeck and I have been saying?
Firstly, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
I just want to say I like how Calbeck just brought in the offspring to an argument about fandom prejudice.
Another clever word sets off unsuspecting bird.
I like that. That was so sick. That was so sick. I like sitting there. I'm just like, yo.
It's straight up though. I've had it on my mind for years now.
It was great. So like, but that is basically at its core. When you look at everything, that is basically what it is like. You look at and Heather did say it earlier. So sorry, Heather, for like arguing over you for like 20 minutes.
Stealing my shtick.
It's like it is basically like that. It is like when the entire even when like there is a good amount of people like who like are like that, and it's like those few people that are like in the public eye that if you do try to even when you try to debate something that is like your fandom is not like that, those very few people but very influential people can make your entire fandom look bad. And while I also agree that like fandom prejudice is like it does not sum up the entirety of a fandom. Like those few stereotypes with enough like influential people doing those things, it sets a bad example. Now, does that mean I'm gonna go? Does that mean like if someone like now? Of course, it means that like no, like not every person in a fandom like of course you're not gonna look at every Sonic fan and be like, you're one of those weird ones who like the big feet tickle thing. No, obviously not. But if if I said I was a Sonic fan to a person who did not know me personally, and like they asked me that question, I still would not be surprised. I'd be like, okay, that's fair. There's enough people in the fandom doing that thing. So let me just say, like, you know what? I appreciate that you even asked me that if I was like that, because most people won't. So it's like,
so you're telling me that because that person had that bias, thinking that you were into that kind of thing, is therefore warranting that bias.
It's like, I wouldn't say it warrants it, but like if you're wary of a person because they are in that kind of fandom, because you know of the extremes, but you don't know the person, if they like, most people would like just avoid the person altogether for just that. But like it's always just gonna vary down to that person. Get to know that person.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, when you look at the like people in these fandoms, like Bryan said earlier, the extreme traits are gonna show when you get to know these people. So do they like is stereotyping everyone like that okay?
No.
Absolutely not.
No,
But
it's not.
but are those stereotypes apparent for a reason? Yes.
Well, I'd say it's actually the opposite from what you're saying there, Canto. The more extreme aspects of a fandom are going to be more apparent from the outside, but if you were to give it a chance from the inside, you'll see a more level-headed sort of culture. You're not going to see you're not going to see the good aspects of it until you actually put yourself in there.
Yeah.
We are Calbeck. Fusion, ha!
Let's go.
You guys got to be the same height and power level in order for that to work, and I don't think you are.
We probably are.
Oh, you don't have to be exactly the same height. I mean, Vegeta is significantly shorter than Goku. And it
Well,
works.
that's called a plot hole because Toriyama can't freaking write.
Okay, I
Toriyama
do have a
didn't write
longer
it.
horn. Objectively,
Hey.
my horn is longer.
Alrighty then. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
That bias is not warranted. Honestly, that's where I can stand.
Yeah,
I would.
Cal did blow a big hole in my whole argument there. And that's so that I'm just gonna say it right now. That's gonna be the thing I learned tonight. Like, oh, I forgot that propaganda is a thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would just say that
No
bias in general is never warranted because it is a bias. It's
Yeah,
something.
it just happens.
Yeah, you have to watch out for it because you can trip yourself up.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like it's kind of like how there's some people out there that believe that, for example, bronies are a weird breed that like little girls. And it's like,
Bronies
what
get
the-
called pedophiles a lot.
Yeah.
Now here's the
Yeah.
thing. Here's the
Dude,
thing
yeah.
about that. We have had a fair number. We've had a fair number of pedophiles. Now here's the thing. I think pedophiles deserve the death penalty, and from my
They also-
observations, usually when the Brony fandom finds a pedophile, we get rid of them. And I have
We
not
shut
seen the
'em down.
same for some other fandoms, mostly furries. Like I'm gonna stand
You
by that.
haven't
I've
seen you haven't seen what I've seen in terms of blowback against certain people.
I suppose
I've seen
I
the
haven't.
entire. I've been fairly close to the Caro the Wolf controversy, for example, in that I was fairly regularly going back and forth with one of the people who uncovered it ultimately. And I'm an analysis guy by preference and also career. So I was one of the people who was like, occasionally brought in as like, does this look legit? And I would go ahead and dig and see around. I was like, yeah, it seems to fit what he's actually doing. I don't want to take a lot of credit for that, but basically, furries like animals, right? If you have somebody saying, I screw roadkill,
Ooh.
Oh,
it's like, I'm sorry that you're doing animal abuse. Oh, I like to have sex with animals. Yeah, that's animal abuse. No, it's not. I just really love animals, and that's so furry.
That's the thing, Calbeck. There is an awful lot of furries out there that defend that kind of thing, and
There are some who do, and this is the problem I was mentioning before.
Yeah,
It kind of goes back to the issue where you have people who come in, they tack themselves on, and the more open-minded and willing to tolerate a fandom is, or at least willing to believe that this doesn't really happen, is like, oh, this that guy, he's such a nice guy. I've met him in person. He wouldn't do anything like that. If you never check your own fandom for what's going on, then these people will sit in the corners and smile and go like, I'm getting away with it. And you will get people who will defend them because they cluster around those people and they become part of that cult.
Which can get eerie. Yeah.
Yeah, so furries do blow back against that kind of thing. It's not that heavily talked about because the drama about the initial incident is far more interesting than they cleaned up their mess.
yeah.
I will. Okay, in this case, what I'll say is, I sort of wish the furry fandom did a better job of publicizing their blowback for it, because
We're decentralized. Who's going to do that?
That's a good question. It could be like whoever's the most popular.
You would think, decentralized or not, that enough people would have the common sense to go, no, that's not right. But you just hear too much
people
defense
like
of it. That's what
I honestly have not seen that much defense, except from people who are directly connected to the people doing it.
All right.
I have seen those people. Let me put it this way: I have seen people who are talking with each other in a particular chat that loves hammers and sickles, about how they were trying to organize to intercept a particular politician on their way through a particular state. And somebody was asking, where do we get some polonium?
Polonium? Plutonium? Or
no, polonium. Infamously used to assassinate a Russian dissident. Because these guys thought it would be poetic.
But
every one of these guys was a tanky. And when it leaked what these people were talking about, they became anathema. But of course, who's going to say, "Wait, we busted a bunch of tankies looking to wipe out an American politician over here"? Oh, furries were looking to kill a politician.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, I'm actually learning stuff tonight, which is good. I like learning.
I've been embroiled in this for decades. I'm sorry about dumping it on you at the once.
No, dude, don't apologize to me. This is what I asked for. I'm digging it.
I mean, Wilson specifically asked for a different story. Something about, what was it?
Rainforest.
Rainforest.
Oh boy.
Said, hey Cal, tell them about Rainforest.
I was not in any way connected with Rainforest, but that was basically a convention run by the kind of people that, it's like, they're the ones who jumped in. It's like, oh, furry fandom's all about my sex life. And the sex life of people I enjoy. And I'm going to have them all in here. And we're just going to have this little orgy over here. Just, okay, yeah.
On a fur pile?
That was still the best venue that, like the venue that Everfree Northwest has now is really freaking good. That hotel that Rainforest was at was still better. And Rainforest ruined it for everybody. Some of the best pictures I ever took in my photography career were at that hotel, and they ruined it. I want to move on a little bit here. I'd like to hear if Editz and or DJ have any like fandom biases that they would like to share with us.
Fandom biases. Okay. Where can I start? I mean, I have a lot of friends who have a thing against furries, but funny enough, I'm biased for furries because I have a brother who is a furry. I haven't really followed much of the fandoms. I've generally been getting a lot of fandoms a lot of people tell me how fandoms are, especially from a lot of my friends. So what would be one that I would have a bias to? Bronies.
Dang, bro.
Definitely
bronies are the best.
They're definitely the best, but also you could say there's times where things happen that bronies shouldn't be proud of.
No, and you're right, and nobody's perfect, but we gotta ask the ratio question, which may or may not be valid according to Heather, and I can definitely see some of the points there. And we've also got to ask the propaganda question, like Calbeck has been showing me tonight. How about you, DJ? Do you have any fandom biases that you want to talk about?
Well, I come mostly more from the normie cast. So a lot of the biases is usually actually towards fandom in general. How a lot of it's kind of overly creepy. You get a lot of people that don't seem to understand boundaries and don't get a lot of social interaction. And like I said at the start, I think there's a lot of truth to stereotypes. But I always think back to one of my favorite quotes from a movie, and that was from Men in Black. People are stupid, a person can be smart, and that's why I try to focus. Sure, there could be some truth in the stereotypes, but each person's still their own person.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to focus on the person that you're trying to interact with, rather than the fandom at large, unless you're truly in that space, I guess, with more like Calbeck's experience with, like, conventions and stuff. But like if you're just someone who like enjoys a show or something, just I would say more focus on people themselves rather than the fandom in general, because like fandoms are always going to be a hit and miss, and you don't always want to tie yourself to a larger group, and rather just make some people you can make friends with, people you can actually rely on that don't need a group.
So DJ, it sounds like what you're saying is that fandom in general attracts the type of person that tends to cause these problems.
It can.
I think there is some truth to that sentiment. I think it comes from people that are usually feeling ostracized, and then when they group together, they don't know what they're doing, and
it becomes kind
I
of.
don't know how to word it any better than it brings out some baser instincts.
It brings out the primitivity. It brings out the tribalism in us, in a sense. That's basically what fandoms are. What was I going to say a moment ago before my brain took a turn? What was it? Basically, what was it? Sorry. You know.
Well, while you think about that, Heather, do you have any anything else you want to add or take away from what we've been saying?
I think we're all veering toward the track that I wanted, that we shouldn't be a bunch of judgy Judies, and we should judge people on their own merit. So, in layman's terms, didn't learn anything. I was right all along.
Oh, don't say that.
Cordero's not around to say it, so Heather's got to take over.
What are you talking about? I say it every single time. I'm always right whenever I come on these things. I'm always right.
No, who was right was Paladin and Pony T at the start of this. This is a couples fight that got turned into a debate.
Definitely.
It is, because he's always like, oh, them furries, all of them Steven Universe fans. And I'm like, not everyone. He's like, but you can assume. I'm like, stop assuming, you little fucking...
I don't say assume.
You said yes. Just remember that,
I don't say
Heather.
assume. I say I'm not surprised when I see them do it.
Yeah.
There's just something so condescending about that shit, though. You're just like, yeah, because you were judging them from the beginning, but you're like, I'll see this play out. And then when something happens to go wrong, you're just like, well, I was right all along. And I'm like, you gotta stop being a hoe.
Well, that's how it works, Heather. I was right all along.
You're lucky I didn't understand any of this.
Yeah, I said that's how that works, okay? I watched it play out, and it played out the way I thought it would, because I recognize patterns.
Yes.
Yes, I just don't like your pessimism.
Oh my god.
Is it pessimism if it's real? Okay?
I have a dream. Is it
biased? Here's a genuine question for everybody. Here's a question for everybody. Is it biased if it's true?
Is it true?
It happens.
That is a different question. We can ask that. Okay, we are at this moment. We are assuming that we have gone through all of the scientific methods and determined that whatever we are talking about is true. Is it biased if it's true?
No.
It's biased if you assume it's true every single time.
It actually depends who you ask. That's what I
say.
It
really true.
That's such an iffy answer. Because like if you apply it to like fandoms, that means you can also apply it to like a bunch of different things, and that's a whole political rabbit hole that I don't think any of us want to go down.
Okay, no, the reason that we all jump back there is because we all know that usually if you say yes, if something is true, it's not biased. Somebody will like, well, what I said is true.
Yeah.
It's what.
Well, then you got it. But then the burden of proof is on you to be able to prove that it's true, right? And that's a different. And I'm willing to have that conversation, right? And I'm willing to admit when I've been wrong.
Because you are a rare and honorable individual.
Yeah, and everybody should be like me. It's the one time in my life I'll say, be like me, because that's the one thing I can do that seems to be difficult for everyone else to do, and I don't know why.
Well, I appreciate that, Brony.
But yes. Okay, when I start seeing certain patterns, I'm like, oh, I'll bet you this person can fall into some of these categories. And when I'm right 75% of the time, I take that. Okay, I will, like, pardon me for having observational abilities. Now then, I think it's a good time to get into audience participation. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
We got a lot of them. We had a lot of good one here. So we're gonna try to rocket through these. So, Trent Jerome at the very beginning, before we even went live, said, I left my 2 cents on this topic in Brony's replies. In my replies on Twitter, he said, the miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir fandom caused a fan to commit seppuku because they liked Lila Rossi. I'm gonna need a source on this one of the villains.
I also don't know what that is. Like,
so yeah, another suicide over fandom drama.
yeah.
So shoot, yeah, but that's what I was saying earlier. We have one example from that, and we've got many more examples in other fandoms. But the miraculous Ladybug fandom is not very big.
Yeah, because I haven't heard of it. If I haven't heard of it, it's not that big.
I kind of want to address something that Mega Buster Shepherd threw in.
Do it.
Go to a furry convention and read aloud from the book of Leviticus. If you do that at a NASCAR convention, watch what happens.
Oh. I'm tempted now. I'm in the state where they have NASCAR races, so.
We have NASCAR races down here too. Cypher8492 says Sonic fans are cringe.
Hey, yo.
I mean, in a way, yeah.
Hey, yo.
Don't get me wrong. When I was a kid, I liked Sonic. It just never got into the fandom, though. You know?
Yeah, like even now, I'm not that well interacting with the Sonic fandom, but I will say I've seen a lot more like positive creations from the positive things from the fandom than I have seen negative.
I've seen the memes. That's basically what I've seen. Now, okay, that comes to the point. I think a lot of these biases do stem from the memes that get spilled out across the internet. That's what I think happens to a lot of this stuff. It's because of the memes. Like the whole Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce. Read!
Oh, God. Some fan of something extreme, it gets memed obviously, and then if more people know about the fandom from the memes, and then that's how they make their they form their opinions about these fandoms.
Especially positive and negative, right? Like for example, the whole Chris Chan thing. That was a negative thing, but everybody basically knows that situation. You know, there's documentaries on it online now. That's basically what it comes to, which leads to the bias of, oh, that's what this fandom is about, huh? Which really, it's a documentary. It's meant to be engaging like this debate.
You know something though is I probably could have done a lot better in this debate if I had opened up with like, hey, you know, I had this I had an argument with a Rick and Morty fan. You know, and everybody in here is going to know exactly how that argument went and probably even what that argument was about, right?
Just played it in my head.
And everybody here is probably going to correctly assume it took place on Reddit. Okay, that's how that goes. If I said I've got a debate, or not a debate, I meant to say if I said I have a date with a Fortnite player from the Five Nights at Freddy's fandom, someone's calling the cops and Chris Hansen. Because there's no such thing as a Five Nights at Freddy's fan who plays Fortnite over the age of 18.
True.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, actually,
shut up, Heather. You haven't played Fortnite in like years.
Wait, Heather played Fortnite?
I did play Fortnite.
Okay, fair enough. I did too.
And I don't think you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan either, outside of watching Markiplier play it.
Oh yeah, that's Markiplier made it big.
All the game theories.
You watched all the game theories?
I watched Markiplier.
I watched all the game theories.
I cannot believe that, bro.
Jeez, freaking phone.
Yes, phone.
I don't care that 911 isn't available anymore.
Oh.
He's in danger.
I think we need to help him. Need me to drive over and get you?
Mega Buster Shepherd says he gave it an acronym word. So NAFALT. That's what we're saying here. NAFALT stands for not all fandoms are like that.
Yeah.
Rusty Rusty
I
Hell
thought it was just
93.
hashtag not all.
Rusty Hell 93 says California is cringe.
Hey,
True.
half of us are California here.
Yeah, get out of my
Hey,
state.
As a
Yeah.
former Californian, I completely agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same,
California
honestly.
count as a fandom?
I'm also agreeing.
Yeah.
But the best pastrami's on earth are over there at the Hat.
Yeah, the Hat, man. Have you ever been to the Hat?
I've never
Jason's
had
Deli
pastrami.
is better.
Oh yeah, actually,
It's
there's a
not.
place.
Don't
there's a
you
place-
lie.
There's a place here in
Dude,
North
I'm gonna
Carolina
cruise down to Balboa Park and check
Called-
out the zoo.
called Mookie's, and that place makes really good sandwiches. So I'm
Ooh.
fine without the Hat. I got Mookie's over here.
Then I'm gonna drive up the
Exactly.
interstate and hit Oceanside.
Oh, what are you gonna do in Oceanside? Go to Micro Center? or
I'm going to go out onto the edge of the pier and cry
Yes.
Oh, why? Why are you gonna cry?
because of what
In-
happened to California since I've left.
Sitting
Yeah.
on the dock of the bay, watching the
Watching the tide
roll away.
roll away.
All right. Megabuster Shepherd says, I prefer to call them hobbies instead of fandom. I dislike heavily being lumped into a quote-unquote community. I just like the pastel horses and not necessarily the spaces that people hang out in. Oh, so you're a misanthropist. I got it. That works too.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. 7 equals 1 heart says, I think I know why Bronny's hair doesn't grow. His ego gets in the way of the follicles.
No, it just
Yeah.
went to his beard.
Will Eisen says, and Bronny doesn't have hair because of all his preposterous levels of testosterone, or posterone, if you will.
It went to his beard, guys.
Went to everywhere
Bronny
except
has-
it's.
Legitimate
The beard,
question. If you had to pick between a head of hair and a beard, which would it be?
It's questions like
Hair.
that keep me up at night, Heather. Half Random and Crazy Productions said in response to Rusty Helm saying that Sonic fans are cringe, he says, not as weird as the Warhammer fandom.
Warhammer. I remember
I
that.
love the Warhammer fandom. I swap memes with them all the time.
I need Shady Oak on here because he plays Warhammer too.
Yeah, I don't play Warhammer, bro. I don't know nothing about
War.
that. fandom.
They'll go ahead and put up a meme about a guy in a suit ripping Pinkie Pie apart, and I'll put
Hey,
up
yeah.
one about the Cutie Mark Crusaders as Space Marines.
Nice.
And
The only thing I know about
they
Warhammer
get
is
really
color
angry
coded
for
with
some
the
reason.
7 equals 1 heart says, I worry I may be too toxic in the fandoms I am in, but others say that I am too hard on myself. Okay, so 7, I've known you for a little while, like just a little bit. He recently joined the Patreon. I have not seen you do anything toxic. So if you are, you're hiding it very well. Let's see here. Especially with the Pokemon fandom, I'm sorry that I hate Gen 7 onward in the anime, fellow fans.
I mean, Sun and Moon had some decent stories, but man, is that animation hard to get past?
Jonathan Magny says, I mean, not all fandoms are completely toxic, but the majority of them are. For years, I tend to stay away from fandoms in general and look at a piece of media and express whatever I like or not. So, Jonathan here is just decrying fandom as a concept.
So, like, we can bring football fans into this, or like, the teams like Go Rams kind of ordeal.
We probably could. I mean, it's the same sort of mentality.
Yeah, because
I've definitely seen sports fans be just as toxic as I've seen Steven Universe fans be.
Definitely. That's my concept. Like, for like the many times there's been football riots or like people going out on the streets, would that be warranted a bias? Because people seem to really go, oh no, that's no big deal. But I feel like that is a bias of the fans of football or so on, kind of just.
Wasn't it a few years ago that I think a team from Philadelphia won some major game, might have even been the Super Bowl, and they just tore the city apart about it?
Now, were they there?
I do have to appreciate this about the My Little Pony fandom. We have never exceeded $1 million in damage to public property.
That's a good feat.
Do we need to go in the Canadian hockey fandom?
Are they bad? Like,
Pretty sure Canada's riots have pretty much all been based on hockey.
It's like the soccer fandoms too. It's by nations, you know.
That's right. That's right, DJ. That trucker protest that happened last year, that was just a hockey riot.
I said most. I did not say all. Do not put words in my house, you hack of a nut brown horse.
What?
Words in your house?
Your mouth is a house? Wait.
Yes. I said what I said, and I stand by what I said.
Is it a 3-bedroom or?
Like the idea of Brony just physically putting a word into his house, like just like he leaves his room, right, and just sees like just a stack of letters that spell like just words in his house.
We are now in electric company territory.
I used to be able to go, "Hey Google," and then "Hey Google, turn off the lights." And but then DJ started wearing headphones around me.
Yeah.
I'm actually not.
That's funny.
JYoshi64, or just call me Jay, says, I just joined my first Brony debate, so welcome to the show, and I immediately get a homework assignment. That'll teach me.
Yeah.
Join the party. I'm the first here too.
Now you go
Literally.
to school, bro.
Get you some education. We're learning in here. Rusty Hell 93. Rusty Hell 93 says, "Oh gosh, the DBZ fandom I've noticed is so obnoxious. I haven't noticed that much about the DBZ fandom, except that they try if you're gonna spot a DBZ fan in the wild, you're most likely gonna find them in the gym, wearing either a Goku or Vegeta tank top shirt, and they're trying to do 5 reps of their 1 rep max weight and screaming because Super Saiyan makes you stronger."
Now, I got this. What about BTS? You guys know BTS?
Oh yeah, I know.
I'm very well affiliated. My sister is one.
My mom is actually a fan of them.
So
I
I'm
only like
concerned.
2 of their. I like 3 of their songs.
Yeah, like "Smooth Like Butter" is a good one.
Oh my god, people over the age of 14 like BTS?
Yeah.
Hey, how about
the only song I've heard from BTS, like from start to end, is "Dope," and that was like when I was in middle school. I have no idea. I don't like any of their other stuff. I haven't listened to it.
I just know their song because it says "Smooth Like Butter."
That's because the song
I've heard none
butter.
of it. But like the last time I went to a baseball game, the other team, the visiting team, like knocked it out of the park at one point. I stood up and I applauded. It was like, yeah, that was a really good shot. That was a good play. And everybody around just turns and stares at me, including my family. And my sister's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, it was a good play. I just the guy's sitting down quietly.
Rusty Helm says the biggest thing with DBZ fans is their Goku versus debates.
Yeah, always just like,
but can he be Goku?
Wait, is it gonna be like ASMR too, or?
No, it's just always like,
But can he be Goku?
"But can he be Goku?" I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Goku is Goku, man. Like,
This is
you can't change that.
Who knows who the strongest is anymore?
That's just superhero fandom, which used to be entirely about who would beat so and so.
Yeah. It's like any
Stan Lee
character
had the best answer to that. It's whatever the writer wants, and I think that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Because a good writer will find a way.
You know what the best fandom wars are? Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Oh
I still
yeah.
don't get.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have nothing in
Okay.
common.
Watching these guys like crank out calculations for how many megajoules it takes to destroy an asteroid, so they can say, "Okay, that's how much power this laser has."
I like I like the analyzation of Star Trek. Star Wars is very boom, boom, bang, bang.
Oh, it's a
You know?
fantasy.
Well, that's something that we could say is a positive bias towards the fandom here. When I lived in Tampa, the mother of the family I was living with, told me, oh, I grew up with Trekkies and Star Wars fans, and they all grew up and became scientists because they were trying to create the world that they saw, the world or the technology that they saw in their favorite movies. And I think that's really cool.
That's how you actually. I've heard this statistic someplace. I heard it said someplace. It's probably from a show about like what Star Wars and what Star Trek did. But automatic doors at the stores and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was because of Star Trek and Star Wars. You got to thank them for automatic doors.
And
what I think
of course,
is a debate we need to have is Star Trek versus Halo.
and of course, in the current day, a standard thing going around is that furries run IT.
Oh yeah.
That is, I mean,
Sorry.
I work in an IT
got
company.
very
I see,
excited.
I work within an IT company field, and I could tell you, I see more Star Wars and Star Trek people than I do furry. I mean, they probably do a good job keeping it away because I know there's one floor I go on where they have unicorns everywhere, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's probably
There's a
the
Brony somewhere in there.
yeah, literally. I'm over here like, okay, okay,
And worst of all, he could be any one of us.
literally,
It could be you.
it could be the
me.
CEO.
Eldritch Dragoon says, I think deep down there needs to be a tempered level of bias for the sake of a healthy implementation of gatekeeping. At the same time, everyone needs to be judged individually. What do we think about that?
I
Fair.
agree. That's pretty straightforward. Though we got to understand that there's some people that, will not pay attention to that or even accept that and keep pushing on with that kind of stuff, which can be a concern. That's at least
I
my
think
take.
we have had a debate. We either have had a debate or somebody suggested and we just never got around to it of how to gatekeep in a fandom and how much gatekeeping is actually appropriate.
For example, hey, don't do that.
Yeah, Gojillion says, not the Godzilla and Power Rangers fandoms, they're chill. And you might be right. The only time I have ever heard about drama in the Godzilla fandom was when there was the debate of who would win of Kong versus Godzilla. And the only time and that wasn't even really drama, at least not the type that I'm used to. And the only time I heard about drama in the Power Rangers fandom was because the Power Rangers actors themselves were doing something crazy.
Like how each ranger has the color of their race.
Not necessarily that. I'm talking like I'm talking like, okay, one time a Power Rangers actor like killed a guy because the guy tried to break into his house for drug money and he slashed him a whole bunch with a freaking sword. And then the guy went to jail I couldn't tell you who or what, but he was a Power Rangers actor. And then somebody in the comments somebody forgot to tell him that this wasn't the movies anymore.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, I could agree with that. I've never seen anything really, but I mean, I'm very far away from both of those fandoms, so I couldn't tell you otherwise. But no drama from those two fandoms ever made it into mainstream news. Paladin Pony T says, here's a big question. Should the MLP fandom be hated because of our very bad apples? No, because I think we do a good job of expelling them for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I believe that whenever people say one bad apple spoils the bunch, I completely disagree. We're not frickin' apples here. We are sentient beings. We can make judgment. This even goes beyond,
Now, this is... Go ahead, Heather.
No, you're an apple. Nom, nom,
It's
nom.
like, realistically, if I got a bag of apples and I immediately found a spoiled one, I'd probably check the rest of the apples before I threw the whole thing away.
Definitely. That's my point, Basically, check before you just chuck,
Although this is sort of towards the points I was making at the beginning there, is like the one time that I can think of where the Brony fandom did not do a very good job of getting rid of a predator was at BronyCon one of the people on the medic staff, his name was Grizzly. He was Grizzly the medic, and we caught him grooming a minor and trying to meet up with her. She was like 14. He was like 29 or something like that. And I think it was Vita that tried to bring it to BronyCon staff's attention of, hey, you've got this guy on your staff and he probably should not be on staff. And they banned Vita for it and kept Grizzly on staff. And that was the one time we didn't really do a good job of that. And I was very upset with BronyCon for doing that. But you know, that's the one time the Brony fandom has had that problem. But that year alone, I'd seen at least 10 documentaries on like furry conventions that made a point of hiring people like that. And I'm like, oh my God. So let's see here. Lesson from Cal's story, says Will Eisen says, my lesson from Cal's story is Californian degens ruin everything.
Yeah,
I
pretty
mean,
much.
take it from
Thanks
me.
a lot.
Take it from me as a Californian. I'm pretty sure the other two Californians can agree. Depends on the Californian you meet, which most of the time they could be pretty. But some of them.
In my defense, that's obviously false because I'm here and I made everything better.
I actually have to address this seriously for a moment. Furry fandom coalesced originally in California, in the Bay Area and LA area.
And did you know?
Did you know? The first furry conventions were down there because things like the CFO Society, which was already there for animation, got to be a big thing with furries. And so comics, animation, all this stuff came together largely in California and spread elsewhere. So, yeah, California, we can blame you.
Yeah, we blame California for the cause of all this stuff.
It's at the roots. You must dig to the root to find the rot.
Let me see. Harriman saying the mainstream news drama for season 1 of Power Rangers was the fact that the Pink Ranger got a stalker and quit the series because of that. I thought she was one of the ones that walked off because of pay disputes, because I know they lost the Red Ranger for that. I think the Black Ranger also wanted more money than they were willing to give him. They only paid Zordon $150 for his whole appearance, and then they just recycled the footage. Yeah. Yeah, they were horrible about that kind of thing. And apparently the original Blue Ranger was gay, and a lot of the people on crew were constantly like making homophobic remarks at him. So one day he just went on his lunch break and didn't return to set. And that's how they lost the Blue Ranger. Let's see here. Will Eisen says, okay, Brony, I had a fandom bias for the early 2000s. If you were Alliance and not Horde, you were cringe and lame. Does anybody have any idea what he's talking about?
He is absolutely correct.
World of Warcraft. And
World of Warcraft. That's been years.
Actually, I would argue that if you were Alliance, you were basic, because the Alliance had all the boring characters. It had humans and it had elves and dwarves, especially to begin with. Oh, that is some basic ass bitch fantasy stuff.
That is also where all the paladins were. You forgot the paladins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the paladins.
Meanwhile, I was running a female Tauren engineer hunter. So I've got this Minotaur chick lobbing bombs at people.
Yeah, the freaking Horde had the orcs, they had the Tauren, they had the freaking they had the trolls, they had the cool characters. Alliance was lame. And it only got better when they got werewolves. That's all they got.
Also, the Horde had the Jamaican trolls, man, dealing in the undead.
I love the Jamaican trolls.
Yeah, they were fabulous. They were great.
Gojillion says, also Vita then got exposed for predatory behavior himself. How ironic. Yeah, and that's the thing. Vita's a horrible person. He was a horrible person the whole time I knew him. He's going to be a horrible person for the rest of his life. And that was before. And that, God, I wish he was sometimes. That doesn't change the fact that he brought a predator to other people's awareness, right? He sucks, but I'm glad he did what he did in that particular instance. Honey Drop the Unicorn says Hufflepuff is the best Hogwarts house.
Let's go.
I have to disagree. Even though I'm put in that house, I just do not like yellow. Yellow is a bad color.
Man,
Slytherin
sorry that-
side?
still issue.
Gryffindor.
Hufflepuff
Sounds
has
like
the
you
most
just need
adorable
to-
name and therefore wins.
Exactly.
And yet it has a badger?
Better. You don't like badgers, bro?
Not
Hufflepuff
really, no.
just sounds cuddly.
It's a honey badger.
Exactly, bro.
I'd rather have a honey bear.
So
Named Winnie the
that's the end of the chat that I had noticed. Did anybody else see anything that they wanted to address?
I'm not even
Not
looking
particularly.
at the chat.
It's
All
they're
right,
having
so
good
let's-
discourse among themselves.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. So I'm gonna start by saying what I've my closing thoughts and what I've learned tonight. I still think that the ratio is an important question to ask, but what I learned about that is that there's a lot more context beyond that of things like vocal minorities and propaganda and how hard it can actually be to get an accurate reading on those ratios that I keep harping on about. So that's all something that I need to consider going forward and working on for myself, and I will do that. So Heather, you may very well hear me talk less trash about other fandoms in the future.
But it's still
Thank
warranted.
God.
And
It's
that's
still
what this was all
warranted.
about.
However, if I come up with a good joke, I'm going to let it fly, and it will be hilarious, and it will be degrading to everybody on the receiving end, and I will not apologize for it.
Hey, yo.
Okay.
Yep. So those are my closing thoughts and what I've learned. Calbeck, how about you? Closing thoughts and one thing you learned.
I actually thought we were closing up earlier. That's why I did the MLK rant. I have a dream that one day all fandoms will be judged on the content of their character and not on the content of their cringe.
Yo.
Beautiful. I
What'd
love
you
it.
learn tonight?
What did I learn? I was in the right from the beginning. I didn't learn nothing.
Oh my God, you guys are so bad at
Applejack
this.
over here. I'm Applejack.
You're all pulling an Applejack. Don't do it.
You guys are so bad at this, DJ.
Okay.
What did? Okay, go ahead, Calbeck.
I'm honestly trying to think of something new that I think I picked up from Heather Blossom. More interest than I had previously in setting aside biases entirely. Just I had some nascent stuff going on there regarding a couple of fandoms that she actually covered directly. So I think I'm setting that aside myself.
Nice. Oh, Paladin Pony T, real quick. Paladin Pony T here is on some 4D chess in the chat here. He said, "Here's a thought: do people who run things keep the bad apples around to discredit fandoms they don't like?"
Oh.
Why would you
Hey,
run a fandom you
yo.
don't like?
Listen, guys. Hold up. I've got. I know what I need to do in response to that. Oh, heck, if I could type. Okay, so just keep that question in mind, and then here's the... Do people who run things keep the bad apples around to discredit a fandom they don't like? The world may never know. Alrighty then. So,
Right.
yeah, DJ, closing thoughts on one thing you learned.
Closing thoughts seem to be pretty well covered. One thing I learned is we need more story times with Cal on this channel. And
Cal is a veteran in every sense of the word. Every time he comes on, we get some good stories out of him.
Mhm.
Hey, you young kids today make me feel good.
I would say Brony needs to learn the lesson of happy wife, happy life. And just deal with it.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Very,
Listen,
very.
Even
Very
if
make-
it drastically shortens my lifespan, I will be the man that stands up that stands up to his wife. I will break that stereotype of being emasculated by my spouse.
Right, live shorter.
Yeah, which is what I always wanted anyway, so forget about it. Let's see here. Who's next? Editz. closing thoughts and one thing you learned tonight.
One thing I've learned tonight that there's a lot more debate to then finding the answer, you know? Like the answer is so convoluted when you're debating. That's my kind of closing cost on it. Like once you answer one question, another one pops up.
That's
for
what
example-
debate. That is what debate is all about. Okay,
Yeah.
I like to use the Socratic method of always asking questions.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, it's cool to be part of this. That's my learning and closing
Yeah,
cost.
it was great having you on. Canto, one thing you learned, or closing thoughts and one thing you learned.
Closing thoughts is Sonic fans aren't cringe. I will die on that hill as long as I'm a Sonic fan.
Cringe.
And something I learned is, of course, that analyzing an entire fandom is a very nuanced subject, and it's not something that you can do very easily. And you'd have to talk to a lot of fans to have it's not black and white, obviously, but it's more than 50 shades of gray, man.
Okay, so Canto is banned.
I think it's more like 300. It's more like 336 shades of gray because you never know. Maybe make it 1,000,000 shades. There's even 1,000,000,000, you know.
Maybe just 50 shades darker.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
Heather, end my suffering. If one thing you learned, closing thoughts and one thing you learned.
I didn't learn anything because I am correct as usual, as we all know.
Fringe.
But I was very... Honey, we all know you are the cringiest, you freaking karate-ass nerd. Anyway, I was very happy to hear everyone's experiences, though, especially Cal's. I just like hearing about it. I don't know. It just brings a little more perspective to it. The furry fandom is more diverse than I thought. And I'm the one that had, a pleasant opinion of them to begin with. But yeah, that's where I'll stand there.
And I have a brother who's a furry, so... Yeah.
Alrighty then. I'm sorry for your loss, Khun.
I've learned that I have not
True.
been able to look away from Kanto's eyes most of the debate.
My brother...
What's wrong with my eyes?
Here, those golden eyes are just arresting, man.
Is it? Are you talking about Khun or Canto? And that's tough because I can't even describe the. I can't even say like the green one because they're both green. The unicorn or the earth pony.
It's almost a perfect framing because it's kind of like you have these giant, huge eyes in the background, and then you have these very focused ones up front, just above the glasses.
Okay, glasses. Yeah, so that is Canto.
Yeah. I made my OC's eyes gold.
Hey, mine are kind of a hazel. Can you tell?
You look like you're on mushrooms.
I am a weirdo in that I like eyes in an expression more than anything else.
Excuse me. I
Fair
drew
enough.
that pose of him, and I thought he was hopped up on Dr. Pepper.
Oh,
He's hopped up on something in that picture.
Oh, is that what the kids are calling it these days?
Let me tell you about adventures with Dr. Pepper someday.
I like
Our
pepper.
addiction.
Pepper's a
Our
great substance. You're a
Dr.
pepper.
Pepper friggin-
She's a pepper. We're all looking peppers.
Eldritch Dragoon says Calbeck pondering the golden orbs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Go, bro.
All right, so that was a lovely debate. Did everybody have fun tonight?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah,
Good. Thank you. Thank
my
you all
headache.
for coming on, especially so last minute. Listen, there are 18 people watching this stream right now. I had better see all of you in Heather Blossom's chat in 15 minutes. What are we doing tonight, Heather?
Chaos and crochet. So it's gonna be pretty chill. I'm gonna have a couple drinks. So see what I'll say. I might say a couple more fucks.
I'll be there.
She might use
Yeah,
some
he'll be
gamer
there.
words. She tends to do that.
Gamer words.
Gamer words like level up.
And what's the Mario freaking coin sound?
She'll call someone a retard with the hard R.
Whoa, we're going
I have
hard.
not done that.
We are
Yeah.
going hard.
Hey, I am
R.
reclaiming that word for society myself. So
That reminds me of a video I saw a while ago.
Okay, but we gotta close it up. You can tell me about that video later. But basically, I better go see everybody in Heather Blossom's stream in about 15 minutes. If you want to get on the show, support the show, check out all these guys that we're on, as well as everybody who supports the show. Links in the description. And see what you get in return. I offer a lot of really good perks for supporting the channel. We're very grateful to everybody who does, especially the $10 and up tier, half of which is on this freaking podcast as it is with Heather, Calbeck, DJ, and Canto. There's also Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, Rein-Kun, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Mr. Sonic 31, Alicia Lynette, Zeta Z, Sniper Nighter, Star Chaser, Venture Core, Will Eisen, 7 equals 1 Heart, and Dark Malcontent, executive producer of Titan Art Studios. Stay safe. God bless. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time. Say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Be sure to ask questions in every conversation. Good night.